everybody, Mrs. Hales here. Today is day 2 of our Eastland Woodland Native American Longhouse Village project. Today is a work day, so you're going to be finishing up coloring anything you wanted to color with markers or crayons. We're going to be painting the landscape and the sky. I used marker to color in my longhouses and the plants in my creek or my river and a little bit of my vegetables, and then I used crayon to color in the soil and the water in my river. Usually when we're at school together, we color first and then we paint last. If you're at home, it doesn't really matter what order you do it. You just need to wait for your work to dry before you color it. Remember to wet your watercolor palette first with clear water, the colors that you want to use. When you're painting a landscape, the darker colors are on the bottom of the page or closer to the viewer, and then things in the background appear lighter. So those things up front, closer to the viewer in the foreground, are also going to be larger than your objects in the background. If you have already colored with Crayola markers some of the things in your composition, be careful to go around them, and you can even leave a little white space around them with your paintbrush because they are water-based. So adding watercolor paint or watercolor to them is going to make them run a little bit. I outlined with Sharpie. Sharpie's permanent, so that's why the Sharpie's not running at all. Let's just do a quick review of all the things that we've learned so far about the art made during the colonial times. We talked about Paul Revere being a silversmith and how his silversmithing techniques that he used were brought here by people who immigrated from England, the colonists or the settlers. We talked about the artwork that the colonists made and brought here also from England, things like paintings and silversmithing. We compared that to, we compared fine art to craft, and crafts being things like penny rugs or crazy quilting. Both of those things were made by American settlers. We also talked about the art and craft that Native American people made things like beaded moccasins and silver jewelry, although you could really argue that that's fine art also. We talked about making pottery in the Native American tradition, and I showed you some examples of pottery. Hopefully you saw that awesome video about Werowocomoco, and I always have to check myself when I pronounce that. And you learned how archaeologists help us to uncover the way that the Native Americans lived, and also the colonists. That was more at Jamestown though. All right, boys and girls, the art elements that we used in this project, I think we covered every one. Let's see, we used line because we drew, we used color because we colored things in, we used shape and form because you learned to draw a 2D house and turn that into a 3D house, or something that, even though it's flat on paper, it looks like it has form. We use texture. If you added any bark or logs to your houses, you used texture. We didn't use value. That's the one thing that we didn't really use. You may or may not have used value, and we used space because we designed our compositions. That's all I have for you guys today. I want to give you as much time as possible to finish your Longhouse Villages. I will see you next time.